There is the suggestion out there from an awful lot of Trump critics that those dots may well connect in some way that points to collusion.
Of alleged collusion between Donald Trump and Russia.
A dossier bluntly asserts that there was collusion.
Allegations of Russian collusion.
The allegations of collusion with Russia.
Or that there was some greater potential collusion.
And lying about collusion.
Criminality or collusion.
Now, I'm not even at the direct collusion stage yet.
I'm not saying that there was necessarily collusion.
Possible collusion.
Whether there was collusion.
Collusion with the Russians.
And any collusion, alleged collusion.
And this question of collusion.
Is there any evidence of collusion?
Any evidence of any connections between the Trump campaign collusion?
Well, we don't know it.
But Congressman, you said with the collusion, there's no evidence that there's collusion.
Hillary Clinton outlined how Trump was connected to Russia, adding that her campaign's senior policy advisor, Jake Sullivan, who is now President Biden's national security advisor, knew more. Here's what Sullivan had to say at the time. Quote, "This could be the most direct link yet between Donald Trump and Moscow. Computer scientists have uncovered a covert server linking the Trump organization to a Russian-based bank. This secret hotline may be the key to unlocking the mystery of Trump's ties to Russia." In New York, it is fascinating in hindsight now to read those tweets. Hillary Clinton was desperate to prove that Donald Trump was somehow tied to Russia. And according to this John Durham filing, it was the Clinton campaign that was actually spying on Trump and ultimately on the President of the United States.
That's right. This was the last weeks of the 2016 campaign. The Clinton campaign was getting a little desperate at that point, but they had been trying for months to try to link the Trump campaign and Donald Trump himself and Russia. It began first with news around the DNC hack around the time of the Democratic Convention, and then it kept going. And in this case, Jake Sullivan, who was then her top advisor, was trying to sell the idea. It was called the Alpha Bank scandal, with the Alpha Bank being a Russian bank, and they alleged that there were a lot of computer connections between Alpha Bank and the Trump organization. Wasn't true, didn't come to anything, but the idea, here's what the idea was. The idea was to sell it to the FBI. And then they could tell reporters that the FBI was investigating something. It's not just us and the Clinton campaign saying this, it's the FBI that's investigating it. That would have given it more credibility with the press, and that's what the Clinton campaign was trying to pull off. What's really striking in this Durham report is after the campaign is over, after Trump wins during the transition and then he becomes president, they're trying to do the same thing with the servers of the executive office of the president. That's absolutely extraordinary. And you remember, in the first months of the Trump administration, the whole Russia allegation with the publication of the dossier was enormously damaging to the president, just incredibly damaging to the president. And now it appears to be the work of, in part, the Clinton campaign, the Democratic Party, various activists involved.
Let them in. I mean, the keepers of this check information gave that information to them. We weren't. Our assessment was not entitled to that information. Then he kind of turned it on its head, cast it in a very different light, in a false light, and then passed it on to two intelligence agencies, the FBI and the CIA. So this was information that was basically they were not entitled to, and they provided false information. They doctored up the information and pumped it into the FBI to try to predicate an investigation on an opponent. Not only that, they used government contractors, people in the private sector at a university who were working on a government contract to analyze the information. That's fraud against the government.
Yeah, to put it plainly, the allegation is that the Clinton campaign and a tech company were spying on a sitting president in the White House.
No. Well, now we know for sure. Now we know 100%. John Durham's revelation, John Durham's filing here. Yep, there was spying going on, and it was worse than we thought because they were spying on the sitting president of the United States, and it goes right to the Clinton campaign. So
the biggest scandal was when they spied on my campaign. They spied on my campaign.
There's no real evidence of that.
Of course there is.
No.
It's all over the place. Leslie,
Sir,
they spied on my campaign and they got caught.
Donald Trump and William Barr promised that Durham would expose huge corruption, but he hasn't done that.
Is apparently an ongoing, concerted Republican and pro-Trump project to try to turn the investigation of the Russia scandal into some kind of scandal itself.
Oh, no. Okay, wait till the Durham report comes out. And and then nothing happens, and they just move on to the next conspiracy theory. It is never going to end. And guess what? People who want to believe that BS are going to believe it.
Now, the conclusion to what we have all known for several years. And for several years, I have been saying Hillary Clinton made the whole thing up and infiltrated Donald Trump and really damaged his reputation. Pete, every American this morning should be outraged. The government and the media failed you. They failed you because they went with a political narrative where one political candidate was simply trying to take down another candidate. But this goes much beyond that. And this is the reason that for 4 years straight, I had people like Devin Nunes and John Ratcliffe on my show every Sunday and told our viewers the truth. Adam Schiff was lying or going on with this narrative the whole time. So the question now becomes, when specifically did the FBI start working with the Clinton campaign? That is what we need to know now, because we know that Hillary Clinton made the whole thing up. But how is it possible that her people were able to infiltrate the President of the United States server, as well as his home, as well as a healthcare company? That's what we need to understand. This tech executive one apparently had contracts, government contracts, that enabled him to get this information and get this access to these servers, so much so that it went right to the President of the United States. I'll tell you, I hope Donald Trump sues them all for everything, because they damaged his reputation throughout his 4 years in office, so much so that he was constantly on defense, constantly explaining that there was no collusion, constantly explaining why that he had to explain that he thought they were spying on him. All of this, again, every American should be outraged by this.
Joe, the media went all in on the Trump-Russia collusion narrative. Will they cover this latest development?
Wow, Carly, great question. Right before I came on, literally during the commercial break, I looked at CNN.com. I looked at the New York Times homepage, the Washington Post homepage. You can't find one story on this explosive development as far as the Durham report, or at least what we're going to see in the Durham report, you know, in writing, a guy who's now been investigating this for some time now, and you want to go attack Mr. Durham, go right ahead. As far as his credibility, that's not a place you really want to be. I can't find one story about this as far as the Clinton campaign actually now hiring people to access servers of Donald Trump, of his campaign, while he's in the White House. This is worse than Watergate. I hate to quote Carl Bernstein, who has said that about 1 billion times on CNN Air, but it's true. And the fact that there is a media blackout on this tells you exactly where our media is at this point, where you say they went all in on Russia collusion and Trump. Carly, we're talking not for a couple of weeks. We're talking for 3 years of a presidency. And now that it looks like this could be turned on its head completely, no one wants to touch this story because they know that they are all culpable in pushing this narrative that basically drowned the country for 3 years and a presidency, quite frankly, for 3 years. And it's just incredible. Not incredible. It's not surprising, but the fact that no one's even touching this story at these major news organizations tells you everything where we are right now as far as trust in our media, which is, I don't use hyperbole very often, really is corrupt at this point.
I mean, at this point, they are an arm of the DNC.